NFL Week 2, time for overreactions. We know exactly how all of these teams are going to look 17 weeks from now, don't we, Eric? Everything that we just saw last week is exactly how it's going to be. We need to overreact to everything we just saw in Week 1. Always a fun week, Eric. Could be a scary week sometimes because we have a sample size now, but not much of a sample size. So you still want to use some of what you thought coming into the regular season, but at some point you have to start to pivot a little bit off of what you may have thought and make some adjustments, right? So it's a little bit of a dance.
Exactly. And I'm not going to lie, like week 2, is always one of my most action-filled weeks.
Me too. It's a scary one.
Already locked in. And it's one of those things I'm looking at. I'm like, God damn, dude, you have a lot of action out there. And you know what? We'll see what happens. So
you and I put together 5 bets for each week together. Last week we were 2-3. We had the Browns easily win. Titans. It's funny. We got lucky in a sense in the cover in that game, how it worked out, because Vrabel very easily could have gone for it late in the game when they were down by 4, and we may not have covered. But the way the game played out until then, I don't think we were on the wrong side there. The Titans should have won that game if Tannehill was not miserable. He missed a couple wide open throws that would have been touchdowns in that game. So I think we still were on the right side of that. I think it still worked out right for the folks who were on the Titans plus money side there. The other losses that we took, were Steelers did not show up at all. What a pathetic showing from them in their home opener. Just god awful. Texans plus the 10. They were feisty and they were in that game late. Then the Patriots plus 4. Another one where I think we're on the right side there when we dive into talk about the Patriots and Eagles a little bit. Yeah. The Patriots really outplayed them. They had way more yards per play. They just had those 2 back-to-back turnovers, right?
Yeah, they got behind the 8 ball real early, but they're in a position to cover. I mean, they're in a position to cover, basically in a position to straight up win. Texans were too. Texans defense looked pretty good. It wasn't that impressive. Lamar Jackson. I had some, and I was on the Colts, and that one stung a little bit too. But you know what?
Yeah,
it is what it is.
That was a nasty one.
It's the joys of gambling. People always ask me, like, what do you do after you win big? I get ready for the next week. What do you do after you lose? I get ready
start handicapping for the next one.
You know what I mean?
Right?
There's no.
You got to.
It's a grind, and you just move on, and you just get ready and do your best, man.
I'll get probably a little more maybe than you. I'm not saying that you won't, but I'll probably get a little more mad on certain days or nights. But then I kind of let myself that day or night, and then the next day it's over. Like I'll let myself kind of be a little frustrated if you have a bad one that you know. But then, like you said, it's hard if you got to do the work and keep doing it. You have to have a clear head when you're doing the work. Like I've tried to sit down before and handicap when you're really bitter. Man, there's nothing worse than that. Like trying to look at races or games or rewatch stuff when you got a bad feeling and a bad taste in your mouth. It's not a good energy. So you always want to try to have the clear head when you're looking at your research, when you're preparing your stuff. And let's get that clear head for week 2. 16 more games this week to dive into, Eric. We're looking at DRF Sportsbook. Just a reminder, any of you that are in the state of Iowa, sign up for DRF Sportsbook right now. Use our promo code FAST350. It'll give you a $350 deposit match bonus. So if you know anyone, friends, family members, anyone that's in the state of Iowa, let them know about this. They'll get a place to play. They'll get a bonus. And Eric and I will get a few bucks back for using our promo code. So FAST350. Give you up to a $350 deposit match bonus. Thursday night football, Eric. Last year, these were 2 of the best teams in the NFC. Isn't it amazing how regression to the mean can happen for a team like the Minnesota Vikings? They are a 6.5-point dog on the road playing at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Vikings won 11 games last year that were decided by 1 score. Every game they played in the regular season that was decided by 1 score, they won. Every ball bounced their way. And then in this game, it was the exact opposite of that, Eric. So now, since the regular season of last year, after winning 11 straight one-score games, the Vikings have now lost 2 in a row. One-score games. In the playoffs, they lost, and now to kick off the season. Turnovers cost them. Kirk Cousins had 2 fumbles, one inside his own 20, another inside field goal range. He threw an interception on the Tampa 2. They also jumped off sides on a play when Tampa kicked the field goal, and after that, Tampa ended up getting a touchdown because they got an automatic first down there. The drive kept going, and instead of 3, they got 7. Those are all the little things that were happening for Minnesota last year. Teams that were having weird penalties, weird turnover luck. They moved the ball way more. They had way more total yards. They won the box score. Yards per play, 5.9 to just 3.6. They won third down percentage, but they turned the ball over 3 times, and they scored only 1 touchdown in their 3 trips to the red zone, so they lost. Totally opposite of what happened for them last year. It was just funny to see because it doesn't always happen that quickly or that blatantly when you see it in a box score where it's like, wow, this was just an unlucky game sort of for them. They even had unlucky injuries to the center, Bradbury, offensive tackle. You want to keep an eye on those. Eric, I'm going to mention something now this year. I think you'll like it too. I'm going to send you some of the information on it. So Pro Football Focus has a new metric they have. It's called a noise canceling score. It's basically like what we use for shot quality. In the NBA, it's something similar to that, where what it does is it grades your ability to move the ball. It takes out turnovers and like some fluky things that happen. And so it shows you like down to down and throughout who's moving the ball better. The Vikings won that score in that game by 1. They should have won that game based on their score, taking some of the fluky things out. I thought that's a cool metric. I'll show you. I think you'll really like it. It's brand new this year. This team it was just so funny to see all of that happen in week 1.
I mean, you knew the regression was coming.
Yeah.
The thing that stood out to me was I was low on Madison. I did bet his rushing prop under. He didn't look that good. Ty Chandler got a run. I expect by the end of the year, it's going to be Ty Chandler's backfield. You're right. If they could have took advantage and scored those red zone turnovers, would have scored in the red zone instead of Kurt having turnovers, they would have won the game. Defense has some holes. Baker Mayfield was able to move the ball. Really, no one in the DBs that was able to stop Evans or Godwin. A little bit worried. Jefferson showed out.
First half, but then they kind of shut him down in the second half.
Jefferson looked pissed on the sidelines too.
He did. Body language was bad.
He looked pissed on the sidelines. End of the day, this is one of those things. This is betting. It's buying low, selling high. This line opened up at 8. It's dropped all the way down to 6 because there's potentially there's 3 starters out for the Eagles. The thing that really stood out for me for the Eagles,
they didn't play that well either, Eric.
Oh, they
did not play well at all. They benefited from the back-to-back turnovers on back-to-back plays that resulted in touchdowns for them.
Yeah, they got gifted some freebies. In terms of the Eagles, I missed the number. I don't want to trust the Eagles laying this big of a number. I'm getting over a touchdown with the Vikes. Obviously, there's the worry with Kirk Cousins in a primetime game. Historically,
against this defense.
Yep, he does struggle. We need to remember last year, they won week 1 last year. And then they came in to that primetime game. I believe the line was 3.
I think it was really less than that even because I punched it early in the week. It was Philly -2, I think. And I think it stayed under 3 because the Vikings were kind of a hot, buzzy team early in the year. And it was and they just beat the crap out of them.
I mean, it wasn't even close. How I'm going to attack this team. I am going to look at player props. The 2 guys that I want to kind of look at is the first guy I want to look at is TJ Hawkinson. The tight ends, Gesicki had 3 for 36. Henry had 5 for 56. Hawk was the second in targets. Really, the open part of the field is really open against the Eagles. I'm looking at the props right now. 49.5 are in the market. I'm going to look at Hockenson over 49.5 yards receiving. Then it comes down to I want to attack it. We talked about it when we did the preview of the NFC North, attacking this Viking secondary because Flores likes to blitz, and that leaves these DBs on an island. AJ Brown's prop is at 74 for receiving yards. That's a little too juicy for me. That's a little too much. Devontae Adams is only at 62. Devontae Smith, I'm looking at it right now. 62.5. So I'm going to be looking at Devontae Smith. I'll be looking at that over 62.5 yards receiving.
Both guys got targeted 7 times, or both guys got targeted 10 times. Both had 7 catches. So this, and when you dive into a lot of the numbers, it's been more of like a 1-1A between those two split, like as much as they are targeted. I think Brown gets it a little more consistently, and Smith had a couple bigger games last year. So, and it kind of evened out to pretty similar. A few things to mention. Addison looked okay, caught 4 of 6 targets. 2 of them went for first downs. 1 was a touchdown. Shout out to the USC boy. Now, for the Eagles, defense forced 2 turnovers. They had, at one point, 3 straight. I believe they had at one point 4 straight 3-and-outs. That only happened to them one time last year in a game where they went 3-and-out 4 times, and that was the game where they started against the Saints with Minshew. Not even a game with Hurts. What we're seeing, Eric, is even a team like Philly, they're not as sharp because they're playing less in the preseason, right? And that was something that they mentioned. Like I
mentioned it, like quarterbacks were 1-6. ATS that didn't play the preseason.
All these guys, and they looked like it. You could just tell they weren't on. They weren't sharp. And so you combine the fact that the Eagles didn't play a lot in the preseason, and that the Patriots have a tough defense, and they're a tough place to play. Like all those things, you put those all together. The Eagles had to settle for a short touchdown, 4 different field goals. They only scored 1 or few offensive touchdowns once last year, and that's what they had here. They didn't even take very many deep shots. They only had 1 pass play for more than 15 yards. They only rushed for 3.9 yards per attempt on 25 carries. They only had 250 total yards, 251, because the way the game was shifting, they needed to be the way the game was shifting. They didn't get as many possessions because they got those turnovers real quick. So it was sort of weird. Like they'll take the victory and get off the field. Their defense had 20 quarterback pressures, but they were 4 of 13 on third down. They only had 2 drives that made it to the red zone. Carter looked really good, though. Gainwell was actually running back 1, but he's going to be out, Eric, in this game. And just another one thing to mention, Hurts did struggle a little bit against the blitz last year. If they can maybe throw some different looks at him with pressure with Flores, maybe they could still get him, uncomfortable early in this year. That offensive line did struggle a little bit. Hurts was pressured 19 times and sacked 3 times there by a good Patriots D line. Anything else on Vikings Eagles?
No.
Yeah.
12 and 17 primetime games, ATS.
At under 7, I'd lean Eagles. I have to make a pick for every game in a contest I'm in, so I would do that, but I wouldn't be necessarily running to go lay it. If you're just looking for something to play, maybe you wait and you can get a little bit better even if the Vikes score early in that one. We go to the Ravens and the Bengals. We have a divisional game. 2 teams that come off of different results in week 1. So the Bengals are a 3-point favorite in here. And it's kind of hard, Eric, to really take a whole lot out of that week 1 game because Burrow had the lowest yards per attempt in a season opener since Vince Ferragamo in 1984. He had 84 yards passing. He was 0 for 8 when targeting Higgins. He finished 14 of 31. And He had a negative 13.9 completion percentage over expectation. That was the worst of his career. He was 1 of 9 for 10 yards on passes of 10 plus yards. And he finished 2 of 14 on third down before being pulled. Another year where the offense has a slow start. They had 142 total yards. They had to punt 7 times in the first half and 10 times overall in the game. They got the crap beat out of them. They really weren't ready to play, and the weather was bad too. That's another factor to point out. It wasn't like they were going to be throwing the ball a whole lot. Cleveland wasn't able to really do that either because of the weather. You had Baltimore. They won, but they didn't look fantastic. As you pointed out, the Texans were in that game. Lamar looked a little rusty. He fumbled twice. He had an interception in the first half. New offensive coordinator, new pieces. They had less than 270 total yards. They did get a little better in the second half. Flowers looked really good. 9 catches, 78 yards, couple run plays. He had 54 receiving yards after the catch. That was 69.2%. That's the most by a rookie in any game in the last 2 years as far as yards after the catch. But for the Ravens, what I'm a little worried about, Eric, Dobbins, torn Achilles, done for the year. Linderbaum left during the game with an injury. Ronnie Stanley injured. Marcus Williams injured. Humphrey also got hurt. Maybe he plays this week. They're already really banged up on the offensive line and in some spots on the defense.
Yeah, I talked about it last night on my stream.
Something in the water over there, huh?
I'm sorry?
Something's in the water over there, in the drinking fountain or something?
It's weird. Like, usually it's just
Yeah.
one team has like injury luck. It just seems year after year they have all these injuries, and it's kind of bad. And in this game, I actually took the Bengals. I got it at the 3. I'd shop around. Some shops have it at 3.5. Here on DRF, you can still get it at the 3. We have to look at it like this. You mentioned Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley. Their reality of the situation, they're going to be out. Plus, they lost Powers. So essentially, they're going into the game without 3 starting linemen from last season. They played a Texans team. I wasn't that impressed. I thought the Ravens offense.
Oh, no, they didn't look very good at all.
That the Texans should have covered that game if they could do
Lamar
anything.
Looked like a guy who was rusty. He was holding the ball.
He can't throw to the outside. He's bottom 3rd in the league throwing to the outside hashes. And every single year since he's got in the league, his percentage throwing in between the numbers has gotten worse. Balls were sailing, they were floating. Even that deep pass to Flowers, it wasn't crisp. It was a floating pass. It wasn't a great pass. I wasn't that impressed by all. So
now mention something. They will most likely have Andrews back, right? So that will help them. That'll help them a little bit. At least give him a target that he's familiar with.
But my thing is, I look at it like this. I'm going against a line where now I'm facing DJ Reader, elite against the run, one of the better run stoppers in the league. I'm not going to have 3 offensive linemen that I had last year. I have Hendrick that's going to be able to get to the quarterback. We don't know what's going on with Humphreys. Marcus Williams is out, and I'm facing Ja'Marr Chase, who averages 7.5 receptions, 115 yards, 115 and a half yards per game against the Ravens. Burrow missed the preseason. We've talked about this before. These quarterbacks that don't play in the preseason, they're sloppy in game 1. This is going to be a great bounce back. And the Browns are tough. My number one takeaway from week 1 is the Browns offensive line is defensive line is 2 times better than I thought it was.
Very, very good.
Putting Smith along with Garrett, I mean, it's insane now. And they're rolling Garrett all over the place. That defensive line, that was the difference in the game. That Browns defensive line is legit nasty. It was a very bad matchup for the Bengals, and they looked exploited.
And they've done, and it's funny, it's been a bad matchup for them ever since Burrow's been there. What are they, 1-6 now in their last 7 games against the Browns? It's just a bad matchup.
We talk about buying low, selling high. Since 2016, teams that lost by double digits playing a team that didn't lose by double digits are 67% ATS. This is just based on the market just being overly not what's the word?
A little bit negative because we saw Cincinnati look so bad. That's all. We saw them look so bad. Anything under 3.5, you got to go.
I think
Cincinnati.
The front's going to be able to create pressure. I like the Bengals here. I bet my money on the Bengals. I'm riding with it.
Yeah. Anything 3 under, I'm on the Bengals.
And I'm going to say this too. I gave this one out. You have to, if you like the Bengals in this game, take the Ravens at plus 160 not to make the playoffs.
Couple DFS looks I might have in this game. One, Higgins, he was targeted 10 times. He was 0 for 8. That was like historic. I can imagine they're going to just try to get him some easy touches and get a couple balls in his hand early. Chase, another one. He called the Browns elves. And then after the game, it was so funny. He said, I can't believe we lost. I called them elves and we lost to a bunch of elves. He doubled down on it, but it was funny like the way he said it. He said, I called them elves and we lost to elves, but they punched him right in the mouth.
And
the one
I'm looking at parlayplay.io right now, sponsor of the show Gino and I do every Sunday
What's
morning.
The promo code we need to use on that one, Eric?
NFL betting blitz. The link to that is on my Linktree page. And it'll be on the stream link that you and I do. And you can use that promo code. T. Higgins, his prop is 59.5.
Yeah, I go over there, and I actually think if you're a fantasy owner of Lamar, I think that the next couple games could be good games for him because I could see him now doing what he's had to do in some of the past years, which is good for a short sample size for him fantasy-wise, but I don't think is good for their team. Like, he's not going to be good with the less offensive linemen, but it might force him to run more, and you may get a little bit more of that running from him if he's forced out of it because he doesn't have a whole lot of time. I don't know if he's going to complete a whole lot of passes this week, but I could see, because he had such a bad week last week, him try to run a little bit more because he has to. But then what ends up happening, that's how he gets hurt a little bit more. And that's what's happened the last couple of years where he's tried to do too much and he's taken a little bit too much on his shoulder. So, yeah, the injuries are not great for them coming into this one. But Flowers looked very good. Let's see if they can get the ball in his hands a little bit more. This might be one of our 5 on the week, Eric, at the Bengals minus the 3. Let's keep going. We'll go to Bears at the Bucks. How about my guy Baker, Eric? Cooking some things up over there. And all joking aside, Baker Mayfield was graded quarterback number 5 on the week by Pro Football Focus as far as passing grade and overall grade. On their first 6 drives, Tampa had 29 total yards. Then Baker finished 21 of 34, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a couple big runs in the game. What was key, they scored on 3 of their final 4 drives down the stretch. They had a 9-minute drive to start the third quarter, which seemed to really take a lot out of the Vikings defense. So some positives for them. They got the win. Negative, they still cannot run the ball at all. They only ran for 76 yards. They were a historically bad rushing team last year. The Bears, one of the most disappointing teams in week 1, I'd say. Not even that they lost, just the offense looked so bad. It looked like there was no creativity. All the stuff we heard about in the offseason about Fields looking better, throwing the ball down the field. He's got new weapons. We didn't see any of that. All of their offense was like scrambles from Fields. They were 3 of 13 on third down. The play calling was really predictable. Screens, scrambles. They didn't attack much at all. Then on the defensive side, they allowed Green Bay to get to 38 points. That was the highest total that any team scored in week 1. A Green Bay team with a quarterback that was making his first true start, and they were missing their number 1 wide receiver, and they had a bunch of new pieces there. And that team still looked like a pretty fluid team against your defense. Justin Fields, through 26 games, is 5-21, which is tied for the second worst record all time for a starting quarterback through 26 games. He had 59 yards rushing, which led the Bears. He's been their leading rusher 10 of the last 12 games. Two things that really stood out to me in rewatching the game, Eric. The offensive line was absolutely putrid. They were miserable. And number two, I don't know if you've seen some of these clips floating around on social media. Claypool is literally walking out there on the field. He's absolutely going through the motions. Like, he's going to get one of his teammates hurt. He's not blocking. He's not giving an effort at all. You watch his routes. He's like, it's like a kid sulking. I didn't notice it until somebody had pointed it out and showed the film on it. And I think Kyle Brandt had mentioned it. And then I saw a big thread of people pointing out plays of his over the last couple of years where he's done this and he's dogged it. And man, I would not be shocked if he's out of that rotation soon and you get someone else there able to catch the ball, because you just don't see that kind of effort in week one from teams usually early when you're not down that much. And I was really disappointed in them, and just, their over under may have been a tad high at 7.5 after we talked more and more about them, but I just thought they would look more spirited, look a little bit better. That just was a really disappointing effort from them. But what do we do now? Week 2. How do we take it coming into this game?
Defense is historically bad. I mean, defense is awful. Just absolutely awful. And it's hard to trust a team because of that. Now, granted, look, did the Bucks have some stuff go their way? They did.
Yep.
But do you trust the Bears offensive line? I don't know. I don't. Bears defense. It's a high school defense. It's legitimately
secondary.
Defense they have. Who on that defense is going to be able to stop Evans, Godwin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Will Fields be able to take advantage of the issues that the Bucks have defensively? Like, literally, if he doesn't throw for 250 yards, there should be some serious concerns in Chicago. Next, there's this trend. The Bears lost by over double digits, right?
Yep.
There's that trend that supports them. Plus, there's a thing where if a team lost by over double digits, they're on the road. The trend's like 24-1. So the trends are saying take the Bears. But I'll be honest, from what I saw defensively, you mentioned Claypool, what I saw from him, I just don't.
I can't get there, and I don't think there's value in the number either. Like, if it was 3.5, yeah, over a field goal, we could start to talk. But right now, the number we're looking at DRF Sportsbook at plus 2.5, no thank you.
And plus, there's possible rain. There could be rain in the forecast. If rain's in the forecast, then you got Fields that will be running around. You have the Bucks that can't run.
And I think there's a little something with Tampa as a team that has a lot of guys in the locker room that have won games for them the last couple years and that are still kind of quality. They're not like their roster's not great, but you get a guy like Baker in there to start and it helps them win a couple games and he dives for a few first downs. This team starts believing, and all of a sudden you look at Tampa and they got, 6 games ahead with teams in their division that aren't that great. Like they win a couple games and they start to feel like, hey, we've got some better players than the guys lined up against us across the other side. So
I know some smart people that took some futures on the Bucks. So
yeah,
I don't know. This is just a stay away. I'm content with just staying away. I have way too many bets going on, and
don't need to force that one.
Don't need to force. I'll stay away and just roll.
We go to the Packers and the Falcons. So Atlanta win. Both these teams come off of a win week 1. Green Bay is a 1-point favorite here on the road. Over under in this game, 40.5. For the Packers, Love looked very good. He was 7 of 9 for 105 yards and a touchdown on third down. Led an opening drive touchdown, 5 scoring drives throughout the game. He was awesome on third and fourth downs. 8 of 10, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, much better in the second half. They were really good on third down as a team. Eric told all of you that Aaron Jones was a play last week in DFS. He was awesome. I think he had like 25 points or so in fantasy. And then he had a hamstring injury. He could have had even more. He had 86 receiving yards. They won total yards and yards per play against the Bears team that we just talked about, did the Packers. They scored all 3 times in the red zone. The defense was strong, was much more aggressive, much more like man-to-man than the zone they had been playing. A lot of their defensive players didn't like. Now, on the Falcons side, they won. I was wondering, because it was just week 1, and I was high on this team, and so are you. Did they keep it very close to the vest because it was week 1 and they don't want to give anything away? Or is this just what they're going to do all year? Because they could get to like 7 or 8 wins if they do that, but I don't think they're going to be able to beat some of these better teams if they're not trying to throw the ball down the field at all. I mean, they didn't even attempt passes at all. The kid gloves were on Ridder. He had under 100 yards passing with 5 minutes left to go in the game. London had no catches. Pitts had 2. One of them was like an awesome catch that he sort of adjusted to make. They only had 221 yards of total offense. Kind of reminded me of the Philly Patriots game. Like, they didn't need to do a lot more than that, but when they got the ball, it was pretty vanilla. This did not ask much of Ridder. He only had 3 incompletions, but he graded 26 out of 37 quarterbacks that got graded on the week. They did win yards per play over Carolina. And the rookie Bijan looked very good. 83 total yards and a touchdown. First 3 quarters, he played 26 of 33 snaps. Late in the game, they leaned more on Algier to run the clock out. But you spend high draft picks on Bijan, London, and Pitts, and you don't use them as much as you should. It feels like a little weird. Is it that just week 1? I hope they get a little bit better at that and more creative, because they may have to against a team like Green Bay. What was great for them, though, Eric, the defense. The free agency ad, Bates, 2 interceptions, and that led to 10 Falcons points. He forced a fumble that led to another score. They scored 17 points off 3 turnovers they got from Carolina. One of them was a 17-yard touchdown. That's all they needed to go, was 17 yards, and they got a big stop on a 4th down inside the red zone, interception inside the Carolina 20, touchdowns on all 3 red zones, but some concerns on the offense. I'm playing Atlanta in here. I like them, and I think this could be a little bit of the overreaction from week 1 where people saw Green Bay and were kind of high on them. I think Atlanta getting plus money here is the play for me. I would take Atlanta, even up at Atlanta minus 1 or 2 in this spot.
For me, I took the Falcons. Look, I just played the money line. It was even money. Yep. I played it like that. We're at this point right now where the Packers good or the Bears defense just bad. That's where we're at. Aaron Jones has his hamstring injury. I know LaFleur at his presser said he could play. Soft tissue injury. I would guess if he does play, he's going to be on a snap count. I think the Falcons kind of showed us who they are. They're going to lean on this run game to start the season until Ridder gets a little bit more comfortable. And they're going to lean on this defense.
Keeps them mistake prone. Yeah.
They're not going to put Ridder in a situation where he could fail. They're going to lean on what they do best. Good defense, good run game. But historically, Packers defense has been bad at what? Stopping the run. Now you're going against a team that arguably has the best rushing attack in
and a fantastic offensive line after you played a team with one of the worst offensive lines in the league.
I think, to me, this is Falcons. I'll take the Falcons here plus the points. And the thing is this, like, you have to look at your survivor rules. Some survivors, you got to kind of play it out. Maybe this is a good week to kind of take the Falcons, who are a little bit under the radar. You know, there's a big spread with the Bills-Raiders game. Maybe you want to save the Bills for later on in the year. You know what I mean? You kind of have to start planning that. I think they could be a sneaky team here, kind of sneak in.
Let's go Colts at Texans. Colts are actually favored by a point on the road in here, over under 39. Richardson looked a little banged up late. Did not take the final few snaps. He is healthy, though. I don't think he has a designation coming into the game. He looked exactly, I think, like what we would have expected from him. Impressive in spots, good with the design run. He had 40 rushing yards, 10 carries. Youngest player in the Super Bowl era to have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the same game. He's only 21 years old and 111 days. But they went 1 of 5 on fourth down, couldn't score more than the 1 touchdown on 3 trips to the red zone. I think it was what we would expect from him. He had trouble on deeper passes when he had to go through his progressions, stuff that was like mapped out and really well drawn out plays. He was fine on those. On the opposite side, you had Stroud for the Texans who looked, you had Stroud on the Texans who looked okay. The offense struggled early in the game. They used all 3 first half timeouts with 8 minutes to go, and that hurt them when they needed to score later in the half. They had a weird play call also on a 4th and 1 on their first drive. I just thought it was weird. But the offensive line, they struggled to keep him protected. He was sacked 5 times, was Stroud. He still completed 28 of 44 passes. And they were only down 7-6 at halftime. Defense played well. 4 total sacks, forced 2 turnovers of Lamar, held Baltimore to less than 270 yards of total offense. But they got stopped twice on 4th and 1 and 3 times overall on 4th down. They actually had more total yards than Baltimore, but the 2 turnovers and failing on 4th 3 times hurt them. Eric, I'm just going to take the home slight dog here in this situation. I don't know if the Colts should be laying any points on the road in here. I feel like the Texans should be getting that traditional maybe home point, like home field advantage. I thought their defense was pretty good. I think with Ryans, it's going to be really improved, and I feel like offensively they'll be a little bit better and be able to throw the ball against Indy. Indy's secondary is not good. Their defensive front is good. Give me the Texans in here at the plus money on the money line.
Yeah, I took the Texans here plus the 1.5. I look at it, it's kind of simple. Out of the 4 units, offense, defense of the Texans and the Colts, who is the best unit? In my eyes, it was the Texans.
Defense.
It
Texans defense. Yep.
If you get anything from Stroud, I think that they're going to be able to win this game. Was Richardson impressive? Yeah, but it was against a defensive front that had some issues. They can't really expose. They can't really get to the quarterback. And when you look at his spray chart, he literally only threw to one side of the field. Like literally only threw to one side of the field. You're telling me that I'm looking at my internet right now and I can see that, and the Texans coaching staff doesn't see that and recognize that? They're going to take advantage of it. They're going to make the young kid very uncomfortable. First road start. Stroud starting at home. Better defensive line against an offensive line that has some issues. I like the Texans here. I'll take the Texans here plus the point and a half, just in case something funky happens at the end, and go from there. I was high on the Texans to start. I think that's going to be continuing. And I think the main thing is, what did the Colts do
to be deserving to be laying any points at all? Roan favorites at all here.
So
nothing.
I'll take the small dog.
Let's move to a playoff rematch of last year. The Chiefs get a couple extra days after they open the season on Thursday. I think they'll have both Kelsey and Jones back.
Jones signed 100%.
Jones has a few days to be playing now. And diving into their game was a little bit of an unlucky loss for them. They were without those 2 players. Tony had 3 drops that were bad. One of them became a pick 6. As a team overall, they had 5 drops. They did have 11 different players catch a pass. I thought this stat was kind of interesting. They had 9 different plays in when they only needed 2 yards to get a new set of downs, and they could only convert 3 of those times. 3 out of the 9. You just got to get a couple yards, and they couldn't do it. They didn't have Kelsey, like their big target or someone comfortable, familiar with. On the other side, the Jags, Ridley looked pretty good playing his first game in 686 days. 8 catches for 101 yards, really nice touchdown grabs. Defense made some plays when they needed with 4 sacks. They won total yards and yards per play. They were terrible on 3rd down, just 25%, but the Colts were even worse, only 17%. 3 for 3 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. This game was a little bit closer than it looked because of the way that late turnover flipped the game. You do have an injury to the right guard. So think about that now. We already had some concerns about their offensive line. It could be depleted, and now they do have Jones back to deal with for Kansas City. The offensive line wasn't playing all that well, and this team had trouble with some ball security. They fumbled 3 times on the day. I'm just not sure about the number in here. I think Kansas City will play well in here. I don't know if I want to lay the 3.5 on the road. I'm not really high on the Jags off that game or off the season. I'm probably staying away from this one, Eric. How about you?
Opened up a 2.5. I don't like laying points on the road. Mahomes, as these low numbers historically, does cover. Also, getting Jones back, that's going to help. The defense against the Lions did look pretty good, even though Jones didn't play, obviously. Kelsey still, I don't know exactly what he's going to do. As from what I'm hearing, they're leaning toward no, just to kind of save them for later in the year. I wouldn't do anything. Like, it just doesn't make sense to force a bet.
No. The number feels kind of accurate. They're kind of trying to bait you here to take Jacksonville at home plus the 3.5. I could see Kansas City coming out and laying the wood in this one. I really could, but I don't, like you said, I've got 5, 6 plus other spots that I like confidently more, including the next game on the board as we talk about the Chargers at the Titans. Chargers. Okay, how crazy is this? The DVOA metrics that we look at, we'll mention, they're obviously much better as you get a little later into the year where you have more sample size. But the Chargers and Miami, after week 1, they had the number 1 and 2 offenses in DVOA because of how good their offenses were. Miami is number 7 in overall DVOA. And they had the number 1 offense and the number 31 defense. The Chargers, who had the number 2 offense and the number 32 defense, they're all the way down at 27. That is how bad their defense was. That game that they had was historically miserable for a defense. It was unbelievable. They allowed 536 total yards, 8.2 yards per play. The Dolphins ran 65 plays and gained 30 first downs.
I mean,
it was
the most important
nuts.
thing that just stood out to me was this. No Armstead and Two Heads was sacked 0 times. To me, that's all the defensive stats I need to read with the Chargers.
They ran for 235 yards and lost. It was tied for the most rushing yards ever in Chargers franchise history. They had a 70% rushing success rate. That was the highest rushing success rate that any team has had in a game over the last 2 years, and they still lost.
Mind-boggling.
And it was funny for them. It was funny. You're exactly right. The way they lost was the same, but on the field, they actually were fine against the run. They were terrible against the pass. And they've been the opposite the last few years. They've been a team that anyone could run on. Hill went absolutely nuts. They only put pressure on Tua, as you mentioned, on 17% of dropbacks, even with a bad offensive line. They had a dumb penalty at the end of the first half where the DB tackled the Dolphins wide receiver. That's just coaching stuff now, and you start to worry about Staley. They get the ball back down 2 with 2 timeouts and like 2 minutes to go. And they can't move the ball at all. 1st and 10, intentional grounding penalty. 2nd and 20, they get sacked for a loss of 8 because of no blocking. 3rd and 28, a 17-yard completion. And then 4th and 12, a game-ending sack. That was a little worrisome. Then on the flip side, you've got the Titans. That was one of the worst should-have-win games that I can remember. Tannehill was awful. He missed this wide-open pass to Okonkwo. That would have been a touchdown. He completed only 16 of 34. He threw 3 interceptions, twice on targets that were to Hopkins, where he was badly trying to force it there. He had 2 bad misses on what could have been huge plays, Eric. I mean, he was the difference between winning and losing. His best play of the day was a screen pass to Henry, who went 46 yards. Of all the quarterbacks that played in week 1, Tannehill had the third worst EPA per dropback. His completion percentage was 10% below expectation. He was pressured on 40% of his dropbacks. They were 0 of 3 in the red zone. They had to kick 5 field goals, and they were only 17% on third downs. They had 8 total field goals in that game against the Saints. It was the most in week 1 history. I do like a sneaky DFS play is the tight end, Okonkwo. I mentioned he was wide open down the sideline for what would have been a huge touchdown. He was badly overthrown. He was on the field on 95.6% of their offensive snaps in 12 and 21 personnel. He was the clear majority in 11 personnel. Only time he was off the field was in a couple early down run plays. And the Saints were really good at preventing fantasy points to tight ends last year. They were actually the best. So maybe someone to take a flyer on this week in a couple DFS lineups. He'll probably be pretty cheap. Talk to us about this one, Eric. I like the Titans at 3 or above.
Yeah, I took the Titans here. I'm looking at parlay play. They don't have any numbers listed for the tight end. Vrabel, 24, 15 and 1, 61.5% ATS as a dog when getting 3 points or more, 23, 9 and 1. That is 71.9%. I'm getting the better coach at home and I'm getting points. And just to kind of illustrate the coaching of the Chargers, we all know second half is about adjustments. And let's just look at Justin Herbert ATS for the second half. 15, 30, and 5. That is his number in the second half. That just shows me lack of second half adjustments. They're not made. It's just a poorly coached team. And I don't think they're going to be able to stop the run. Stop the run of Derrick Henry and Spears. I don't think they're going to be able to create pressure to make Tannehill uncomfortable. They're going to get the run going with Henry and Spears, which is going to open up the play action pass game. I'm getting the better coach team at home, getting the 3. And we've seen this before, mentioned in the Burrow game. Tannehill didn't play the preseason. He has that game under its system. Going to be right. I just expect the bounce back from him.
Me too.
I'll take it. Chargers have all the talent in the world, but it's just not clicking with what they have going on there.
No. Next game, I'm going to stay away from this game from just playing a side here. We've got the Bills as a 9-point favorite against the Raiders. For the Bills, just one thing to point out for them. The last 19 games for Josh Allen. This was a Nick Wright stat. I don't always love what Nick Wright says, but he just pointed out the stat, and it's a fact. 20 interceptions in the last 19 games and 17 fumbles. 37 times the ball's been out of his hands in the last 19 games. It's 2 a game. It's really hard. I mean, even in like this, it's tough to cover a big spread like this when you're turning the ball over all the time. Now, the Raiders, I don't like them in these kind of situations where they travel and have to go on the road to the East Coast like this. They're never very good. But Jimmy G, damn, man, 41 and 17 as a starter. He had the 12th fourth quarter comeback of his career. Jimmy G was one of the best quarterbacks of the week based on like a lot of advanced metrics like DYAR and like a lot of them. He had a bad fumble on 1st and goal from the 1, but he fell on the ball 3 plays later. He threw an interception. But other than that, he targeted Myers 10 times, Adams 9 times. The final drive, he completes 4 passes. He goes 60 yards passing, leads a 75-yard scoring drive to go ahead. He had 4 passes down the field that were 10 yards or more on that drive. EPA per dropback was excellent, very efficient. Number 1 ranked quarterback of the week on EPA plus completion percentage over expectations. They even committed 10 penalties. 6 of them gave Denver an automatic first down. 2 of them gave Denver, 6 of them gave automatic first downs to Denver. 2 of them were on 4th downs. They held Denver to only 16 points, but the Broncos missed a field goal, missed an extra point, and the Broncos went for an onside kick to start the game, which gave the Raiders an extra possession. Only 71 total yards for Jacobs, though. He got shut down, just 2.5 yards per carry. Any thoughts on this one? Raiders, Bills.
What was the Nick Wright stat?
That Allen in his last 19 games, 20 interceptions, 17 fumbles.
So he had 3 interceptions. I mean, like, I'm just looking at the game log right now. I'm kind of going to take it with a grain of salt. He had that elbow injury.
Yeah.
Against the Jets. After that elbow injury, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11.
So a lot of
11
them came when he was banged
INTs,
up.
11. You know what I mean? So I mean,
Yeah, so it's tough.
to me, like, you kind of got to take that with it because he had a legit elbow injury and his wheels fell off last year. The Jets defense is just built to stop Josh Allen. I would not. In me, the absolute hammer play in DFS this week is Josh Allen. I expect
Bounce
an
back.
absolute huge bounce back for him. He's one of the better quarterbacks. We see these quarterbacks, we've talked about it before, when they get these big numbers, not covering. He covers at home when he has these absurd numbers over a tutty. So I like the Bills here. I mean, I don't know. The Raiders are a weird team. The Raiders are a sneaky public team. Number always gets bet down. Look, if I can get the Bills are going to be a team I kind of look at maybe to bet live if it gets down,
especially
to 7,
if the Raiders score. Yeah,
it's 7. But to me, I wasn't that impressed with anything, so I'll go there.
One of the most disappointing teams in week 1 was Seattle. They're going to be headed to Detroit, play the Lions, who beat the Chiefs. Lions defensively were very impressive. They held the Chiefs to 2.6 yards per carry on the non-Mahomes runs. Rookie defensive back Branch was excellent in the slot. He returned an interception for a touchdown, was targeted 3 times in coverage, only 1 reception for 3 yards, had a couple tackles and defensive stops. The offense, they couldn't score a lot, but in the advanced metrics, they were actually decent. They were one of a few teams with a positive EPA per play. I think Detroit was actually like 8th. And so the metrics weren't bad on some of the advanced metrics. They just couldn't score probably as much as they would have liked. But Goff has now gone 359 straight passes without an interception, 3rd longest streak ever behind Brady and Rodgers. Hutchinson, great start to year 2, career high 6 pressures in that game. That was the most by a Lions player since the start of 2020. Seattle was up 13-7 at the half. In the second half, they did not have one drive that went more than 10 yards. The Rams beat the absolute crap out of them. I loved seeing it. I did not think it was going to happen. You kind of called this, Eric. Seattle had 12 total yards in the second half. They did not get to 200 total yards in the game. And the Rams had 426 total yards, 300 yards in the second half alone. Seattle gave up 5.5 yards per play and allowed the Rams to convert 65% of their third downs, scored touchdowns all 3 times the Rams were in the red zone. Geno Smith had the 5th lowest air yards of the week. Their offense didn't look good. Their defense was bad. The offensive line was bad. They looked like one of the most disappointing teams of week 1. I don't know what to do really in here. This number seems accurate, maybe a touch high on the Lions side, but I don't really have a strong opinion to play this one, Eric.
I took the 6. I mean, as soon as this got to 6, you took
Seattle
plus the 6. Pete Carroll as a dog is 47, 31, and 3. That's 63.3% ATS. Carroll, after losing by a touchdown or more, 57.9% ATS. I mentioned the stat since 2016, a team that lost by double digits playing a team that didn't lose by double digits, 67% ATS. When they're on the road, that's 24-1. Let's look at the Lions game. Look, I'm a Lions fan. I'm rocking my Lions hat right now when we're recording. There was no Chris Jones on the offensive line, which helped the pass pro, which helped the Lions be able to run the ball. Flip side, no Travis Kelce, which is absolutely huge because he's so efficient on the third down stuff with them moving the ball. Plus, Tony drops passes. If Tony catches those balls and the Chiefs end up winning that game and the Lions lose this game and the Seahawks did,
yes.
This is a 3-point spread.
Yeah.
So, look, I have 3 points of value. So the look ahead, this was 2.5. I'm getting value here on the Seahawks. I'm going to take it.
You'll have a big survivor play this week for a lot of folks with the Giants heading to play Arizona. They're a 5.5-point favorite on the road after they just got destroyed on Sunday Night Football. Really tough to take anything out of that game because they got killed everywhere. Offensively, they couldn't move the ball at all because Dallas's defensive line was so good. You're not going to get that from Arizona. But Arizona's defense actually played pretty well. They had 6 sacks, 5 different players had a sack, 2 fumble recoveries. They had an interception and 7 passes defended. They ran a fumble back for a touchdown. Their lone touchdown came from the defense. They were up by 3 at half. Offense struggled for them as expected, though. Starting quarterback Dobbs has only been around for a few weeks for them. They went 4 of 14 on third down. Then you have the Giants, who could not have been worse, gave up a special teams touchdown on a blocked field goal that got returned, gave up a pick 6, couldn't block anything, gave up 7 sacks, couldn't run the ball. I don't want to lay this number with the Giants. I do think they will have to feel like they have to play a lot better this week. This is just a real stay away for me, Eric.
100% stay away. I will say this, though. You have the 10-point dog trend that I mentioned earlier. Teams that lost by 35% or more are 61% ATS. If Howell doesn't make that late turnover, look, boom. This game, that game's not as close as it was. That led to a touchdown. I think this is a nice get right spot for the Giants. I think you can look to play Saquon Barkley. I think that's another guy you can kind of look at, because this is going to be probably the lowest ownership Barkley and Allen are going to be for a while. So I'd look at that, but 5.5, a little too juicy for my blood.
Now, a couple of these last games we might go through real quick or speed through. Just keep and remember that Eric and I will also have a show together on Friday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time called The Winning Ticket on DRF Sportsbook, where we give out a couple of our best bets for college football for Saturday and then best bets for Sunday. Then Sunday morning, Eric and I have NFL Betting Blitz, 11 a.m. Eastern time. That'll be every Sunday, and it'll be like an hour show where we give you all of the last minute up-to-date info on all the teams, injury info. We'll know the numbers. We'll talk DFS there too. So we'll be able to spend maybe a little more time on some of these games that we just spend a couple minutes on here. This is an interesting one, Eric, as we go 49ers and at the Rams. So the 49ers are an 8-point favorite on the road. They kicked the crap out of the Steelers. Purdy was good. Was ranked number 9 of the week in Pro Football Focus. Led scoring drives on 4 straight drives. He was pressured on 44% of dropbacks. Was the 6th best EPA. McCaffrey had 152 yards rushing, 22 carries. He had a 65-yard touchdown run. Ayuk was awesome. 8 catches on 8 targets for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not surprised to see the 49ers play well. I was more surprised at how inept the Steelers were in that game.
As soon as Hayward went out, though, they were just able
it was done.
Run.
And as soon as as a gambler, if you're watching that game and you bet Pitt, the moment Deontay Johnson slips and the ball is thrown right into the defender's hands of the 49ers, you just knew the game was it wasn't your game.
We should have hit that plus 300 prop. Small hands, like he was wide open going. And I know. As much as everyone was giving me shit, oh, dude, you're wrong about Kenny Pickett. I'm going to be doing my victory lap about Kenny Pickett.
He looked really bad. And again, we don't want to necessarily overreact to the one, but because San Francisco's defense is probably one of the better ones, they looked really out of whack. He missed some wide open throws because he was under pressure and feeling rattled, and it was just miserable all over from the Steelers. Now on the Rams side, Puka Nacua targeted 15 times, 10 catches for 119 yards. Stafford was awesome, dude. This was your Lion Stafford, 334 yards passing. Connected really well with the 2 young receivers. 5 different players caught passes. 4 of them caught a pass for at least 20 yards. He completed 7 first down conversions on the 12 third down passes that he had. The defense looked motivated. They did not allow one drive more than 10 yards in the second half. 300 yards of offense themselves in the second half. They won total yardage, 426 to 180. They crushed in yards per play. Awesome in the red zone. Kyren Williams got all the running back work. Akers had 22 carries, but only 29 yards. He had 8 carries in the last 4 minutes of the game, running out the clock too. And he lost yardage on 5 carries. He was stuffed at the line 5 times, and he only got 1 yard, 4 more. So 14 of his carries were for 1 yard or less.
I tried to warn everyone about Cam.
You did. You told me the Rammies were going to be better. The offensive line, they were really bad last year, and they were really banged up. They gave up no sacks this year to Seattle in week 1. They did commit overall as a team 7 penalties, which is no surprise because they have a lot of young guys on their team, Eric. But I don't know if the Rams are going to be a good team. Once we got over 7.5, though, I think the only side you can be on here would be the Rams at like +8, right?
I mean, come on, you know what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
Let's see what I do. Home divisional dogs.
Absolutely.
55% ATS.
Got to be on the Rams.
7-point favorite or more in his career, 43.8%. Look, I'm not going to say that the Rams could win the game, but I think this number is a little bit too much. I think people are buying into the San Francisco hype. Purdy played absolutely flawless. Rams defense is better than I think people realize. I think they're going to be able to have some success. I like him here. I think
the number, it's just a good number now. Yeah. And McVay seems motivated. We forget he's a really good coach. He's a really good offensive coach. We forget Stafford is good. He was fantastic by a lot of the advanced metrics. And overall, the Rams just played really, really well. Their offense was number 3 based on DVOA metrics. They were good. We keep rolling along. Rammies is going to be one of our plays this week. I don't know what to do in this game, Eric. The Jets at the Cowboys. We saw the Jets with Aaron Rodgers get hurt on Monday Night Football.
To me, there's a huge trend after teams win by so much to bet them. But
with Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, after teams win by 28 or more, 47% ATS, 35 or more, 42% ATS. But you have to look at it like this. Do you trust Zach Wilson on the road? Because it was pretty clear with
against this defense. It was this defense.
It was pretty clear with that play calling that they absolutely don't trust him at all. Flip side, the Jets defense did look pretty good. I mean, maybe they'll be able to keep it in the game. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Jets can just score enough points to come in. Because to cover this number, you need to get to 10. Can the Jets get to 10? I don't think they can.
I don't either. Yeah, I'm staying away from this one. This one I had some of the least notes because Cowboys were up 19-0 before they even scored an offensive touchdown. They returned a block field goal for a touchdown. Defense has a pick 6. Overall, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions, a pick 6. They forced 5 fumbles. 6 different Cowboys had at least 4 pressures. Their defense is fantastic.
Excuse my language.
No, it's like you can't take anything from the film in that game and use it for this week. It's just we know Dallas has a good defense. I don't want to play the Jets, unfortunately, at this number with old Zachy. Let's go Broncos at home. They're hosting Washington. The Broncos come out of one of the weirder games of week 1, Eric, because a lot of people rolled their eyes and said, oh, the Broncos, they only scored 16 points again. Even with Sean Payton coming in, the offense didn't get any better. Russell Wilson didn't get any better. Denver had the number 4 offensive DVOA of the week. Denver attempted an onside kick in the opening play of the game. They didn't get it. That resulted in a short field for the Raiders and immediately a touchdown. So all of a sudden they're behind. The Broncos only got 6 possessions in the whole game. 6. The Raiders went on this one really long drive, and the Broncos had a couple of them themselves, Eric. They won the time of possession by over 4 minutes. Wilson only had 2 incompletions out of his first 19. He led 2 drives of 75-plus yards, finishing them off with touchdown passes. They were up by 3 at half. He was really good on intermediate stuff. They had 3 scoring drives of 75-plus yards. It really wasn't the offensive's fault. They were number 8 in EPA per play. They had a positive EPA per play. They had a 47.6% success rate, which was 7th. That's how many of your plays were graded successful. Almost half of them. Wilson ranked quarterback number 4 on the week for EPA plus completion percentage over expectation. And they won that stat, the noise canceled score, by 1 point. Now, I don't love the number at 3.5. I think the Broncos are a little bit better than people may have thought if you're just looking at the score of week 1. And the Commanders, they looked bad. The defense saved them. They held Arizona to 3 points offensively and 93 yards in the second half. The defense had 17 total pressures, allowed only 210 total yards. As you had predicted, Brian Robinson got the bulk of the work. He had 59 yards, 19 carries, also a 7-yard touchdown catch. Gibson only had 3 carries, just the second time in his career he had 4 touches or less in a game. I like Denver more. I don't know if I just want to lay the 3.5, but I think Denver's going to play well in here.
I want nothing to do with this game. To me, I've been on your podcast a lot, and the main thing I've always said was what? Sean Payton has these insanely talented teams, and because he gets too cute for the room, they lose
exactly
the game.
What he did to the onside kick.
I don't know where. I know Marvin Mims is coming back from injury. Where the hell is Marvin Mims? You cannot expect to win a game when Samaje Perine is your leading rusher. Javonte Williams, I think he's going to be a stud toward the end of the season. He looked tired. He looked out of shape, which is to be expected. He's coming back from a serious injury. But you have a chance. You need a touchdown. And with how good he is at breaking tackles, he's not in the game. That was like, WTF, what are you doing? Wilson looked good for the first half. Second half, he kind of struggled a little bit. Defense wasn't able to get that many stops. Commanders, the thing that stood out for the Commanders,
their defense was terrible. For that was the key for Denver. Their defense really wasn't very good. Yeah, they didn't stop the Raiders at all.
And for the Commanders, the main thing that stood out to me was the guy that is your lead back runs better out of the traditional quarterback under center formation, but you kept doing shotgun. So you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know if Robinson long-term with what they're trying to do kind of fits into it. Defense was okay. Offense made enough plays, but to me, this is the game I want nothing to do with it.
Don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. We get to Dolphins at the Patriots. Patriots are a 3-point home dog in here. Tua had the 4th most passing yards of all time in week 1. He had 466. He attempted 8 passes, targeted more than 20 yards downfield, completed 5 of them, 6 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play. It was his 2nd highest-graded game in his career. He was the number 1 quarterback in EPA. So how about this? Number 1 quarterback in EPA last year when the defense made a mistake. When there was broken coverage, he was number 1. When there was perfect coverage, where do you think Tua was last year?
Toward the bottom.
Dead last. That's what happens, Eric. That's how they've been able to pick teams apart. If you play smart defense and don't bite and don't get beat, they're not going to beat you. If you get beat and make a mistake, he's going to find Hill or Waddle, and you're done.
Yeah.
That's what happens. If you just play smart defense, you can beat this team. We saw the Chargers do it last year. They couldn't do it, though, this year. There were 7 lead changes in that game, 60 combined first downs, 70 points total, 969 yards. Hill was amazing. But they're going to have to play a good defense here. The Patriots turn the ball over on their first drive. Then on their next play, they're down 16-0. They have 2 turnovers, 3 3-and-outs. First 5 drives, they've got 43 yards. Then they figure things out. They had to throw the ball 54 times, though. They couldn't run the ball at all, which was a little strange. They're usually really good at that. I'm sure they'll try to lean on the run here, and that's what the Chargers just did, running for 270 yards against the Dolphins. So I'd imagine that the Patriots bounce back and run the ball a lot better here. I'm liking Patriots at anything on the 3, home divisional dog, 3 or above. I'm leaning the Patriots here.
I think the Patriots here plus the 3. I think the big thing we need to remember is a couple things. They lost the game, but the Pats defense looked good.
Very good. Against a good offense.
Yep. It's looking like Armstead's going to be out again. With Armstead being out, I believe that the pass rush of the Patriots is going to be able to get home against Tua. Belichick is going to have a game plan to take Hill away, force other guys to beat you. In terms of DFS, a real sneaky punt play. Taking out Tua, obviously, because he's the quarterback and the offensive lineman, just looking at the skill players. Which skill player played the most snaps for the Miami Dolphins?
I'm not sure. Who is that?
their tight end, Durham Smith.
Okay.
He was on the field for every single offensive play.
Major positive for someone if you're looking for sneaky, cheap, and if you just accidentally can get a couple targets, right? Because you're just on the field so much.
And I mean,
doubles the Hill, like you said, they try to take Hill out of the game or Waddle.
I think that they're going to be able to run the ball, but the main thing is this: when you're playing on turf, it's a faster surface. When you're playing on grass, it's a lot slower. You're going from playing on that California turf to playing on that New England grass. I think they're not going to be as explosive offensively. I think Belichick's going to have a thing. I think they're going to, like you mentioned, this is going to be a rushing attack. They're going to lean on that running game, shorten the game. Chargers are able to run for over 236. I think this is a great bounce back spot for Ramon Stevenson. I'm on the Patriots here. I took him at +3.
That's Sunday Night Football. Remember, this week there are 2 Monday Night Football games. I hate what they do with this too. They have them stacked on top of each other. They don't even like let them play out and then start the second game so we can all watch them both. I guess it's better for people on the East Coast because it doesn't start as late. But we're
East 2 games, bias, baby. East Coast bias. I love it.
The 2 games going on simultaneously instead of having a full game on and then another full game after it. Saints at Panthers was my game that I had no idea what to do with, Eric, because the defense of the Panthers played pretty well, held the Falcons to under 225 total yards, 3 turnovers cost him the game. But then you had Young, who did exactly what we thought. He had 8 throwaways in that game, the 3rd most in a game since PFF began charting back in 2006. The offense didn't have openings. The receivers were not open. He didn't feel like forcing it. He was throwing it away. The Saints, I don't know how good they were because Tannehill was missing wide open guys. I thought the Saints should have lost that game. I'm staying away from this one.
Young looked awful. I don't know. I don't trust Wright as a coach. I think Wright kind of messed up not taking the 3 right away, putting a little scoreboard pressure on the Falcons, especially when you have a young quarterback. I would have liked to see them lean on Miles Sanders a little bit more. Young just looked bad. Footwork looked bad.
He looked small and unprepared, and they don't have weapons.
But then again, I don't trust Dennis Allen. To me, this is just a pure stay away. Yep. I have nothing to do. Maybe I'll look at some tight end props for but that would be it for Juwan Johnson. But that would be it.
I'm staying away from that one. Monday night, Browns at the Steelers. Steelers are a 2-point home dog because the Steelers probably looked the worst of any team in the league week 1. And the Browns looked about as good. They're on that short list of the best teams in week 1. 6 minutes left to go in the half. Pittsburgh had 45 penalty yards and 1 offensive yard. 1. They had 5 straight 3-and-outs with -9 yards to start. They didn't earn a first down until 1 minute and 15 seconds left to go in the half. Our guy, Matt Canada, I think you'll like this stat. So they have gone 36 straight games without 400 yards of offense. There have been 269 different offensive that has gained 400 yards since the last time the Steelers have done it. 269 different times in offense. He just can't. He's not creative. Pickett was bad on many early throws. The offensive line wasn't good. They gave up 5 sacks. Deontay Johnson slipped on a route. It gave the defensive player from San Francisco an easy interception. Maybe keep an eye on Calvin Austin, second-year player. He finished with 6 catches, 6 targets. He lined up out wide 86% of the time. He was the guy kind of taking advantage, especially if Claypool doesn't look good and you don't have Johnson over there. Actually, sorry, I said Claypool. Claypool was your old Steeler. Pickett, though, you and I agreed he was bad. Hayward got hurt. The linebackers in the secondary were awful. The defense gave up 188 rushing yards. They allowed San Francisco to go 6 of 13 on 3rd down. One of the lone bright spots was Watt, who was awesome as always. But they lost by 23 points, Eric. That was the greatest margin of defeat at home in the Mike Tomlin era. Even in one point, they had to call a timeout on a 4th and 12 when the 49ers were about to kick a field goal because they didn't have the right personnel out there.
They just look sloppy. Tomlin off a loss, 58.6%. ATS 24-34 as a dog, 51, 28-3 at 64.6. Home dog 15, 5-3. Look, I took this at 1.5 but then some Steelers injury news started coming out. To me, I don't know, because I'm heavily invested in Browns futures.
Yeah.
If the Browns win this game, they're 2-0.
They've already got the 2 divisional wins, which are
they're 2-0.
huge.
They're looking in a great position because historically speaking, teams that go 2-0 make the playoffs. Flip side, one of the biggest injuries that's not being reported at all is my boy Jack Conklin out for the year for the Browns. That is pretty big. Hayward banged up. Both these teams are banged up. You got to bet, in my eyes, Steelers here on the bounce back.
Yep.
Historically speaking,
because this is what we look for, Eric. The one team that had an awful week, the one other team had a fantastic week. So everybody saw the Browns look great. Everybody saw the Steelers look horrible. And that's why we're probably getting an extra 2 points here, 2 to 3 points. Like otherwise, we're probably looking at Steelers -1 or something in that range.
Exactly. I'll take this all day. Give it to me.
Me too. So I think this will be our 5th of the 5 games for week 1. It looks like you and I are going to land on Falcons plus the 1, Texans plus the 1, Titans plus the 3, Rams plus the 8, Steelers plus the 2 for our 5 games of the week. Eric, I know you need to run. You extended your time with me here, very kindly of you to do so. So we're going to give you a follow at ETOF21, and we'll check out all of your stuff at ETOF21 Sports, wherever you are. Friday on the winning ticket with DRF Sportsbook. And then you have your podcast that will come out also this weekend as well, right?
Yeah, it comes out Friday-ish. I don't really know when. It kind of depends. My boy Brandon comes on, shares some NASCAR picks. Nick comes on, talks a little fantasy. We build a DFS lineup. If you followed it, we went against the grain. We did build a cash game lineup. We built it around Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, and Kirk Cousins. So you won some money there. So hopefully we can keep that going. So be on the lookout for that.
10 road teams won in week 1. The average starting age of a quarterback in week 1 was 27 years old. That was the youngest average age since the merger. So we saw some sloppy teams that didn't play preseason. We saw some young quarterbacks. No more Brady, no more Breeze, a lot of the old vets, no Roethlisberger. They're not around anymore. So it's a lot of new faces there making their starts. Eric, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate the extra few minutes. Good luck to you the next few days. I'll talk with you on Friday over on DRF Sportsbook with the winning ticket. And good luck, everyone. Don't forget about parlayplay.io. Use that promo code NFL Betting Blitz. They've got action every day, all different sports. So if you're a football fan, you can play on Mondays, Thursdays, Sundays. But if you like baseball or some of the other sports going on, you can play the different prop contests they have and the different ways to get involved. Remember to use that promo code NFL Betting Blitz. Good luck this week, folks.